everybody. So today we're gonna talk about, I'm gonna use the star cards because I got a question. Somebody wanted me to look at the way the moon trine Saturn might function in their chart, or function in general, I think was kind of more the question, but I pulled their chart because I was curious. I'm not going to show it for privacy reasons, but we're going to talk a little bit about what the moon trine Saturn might look like. And again, as a disclaimer, you want to take the whole chart into account when you synthesize, right? You want to look, because I'm looking at their chart right now and I see some other things going on with their moon. There is an inconjunct. The moon is actually the apex of a yod as well. Between the moon, Mars, and Pluto, that I would think they would want to look at too. That will play into how this functions, how this specific thing they asked about, moon trine Saturn, will function. But so you definitely want to look into that. but we'll talk about this particular aspect, moon trine Saturn. So we have, let's see, I'll get the cards. I'll leave the houses out of it for just a second, just because it's a lot of cards to hold. So we have the moon in Gemini. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the moon in Gemini. The moon in Gemini is more, it's more flexible. It's a flexible place for the moon, emotionally flexible. There is usually an emotional flexibility that exists here. Probably pretty emotionally curious. Probably want to be emotionally communicative. But again, this is the apex of a yod. So I'm not sure that the moon here always functions exactly the way that I'm saying that it might, but this is how it wants to, right? Moon in Gemini wants to function this way. It can also, moon in Gemini can be anxious. There can be an anxiousness or a nervousness about it. I'm inclined to think that this might be one of the ways that this could come out because of it also being the apex of this yod in their chart. Another one for youthful. Moon in Gemini people, there is usually like an emotional youthfulness. That doesn't mean immaturity. That just means youthful. All I mean here is youthful. It's just an emotionally youthful quality. From what I know about this person, they do seem like they are. But again, I don't mean that like in an immature way. I just mean they just feel emotionally youthful. They exude a sort of youthfulness. Okay, and then let's see. This one is going on in the second. I'll go and do the card now. This one's going on in the second house. The moon is in Gemini in the second house. So to be able to express emotion for them, for this person with the moon in the second house, it needs to be, this is how security is found. There's also a survival quality to the second house, like a backdrop of survival, a backdrop of security, a backdrop of self-worth, the areas of life. So this person might feel like needing to express their emotions is like it's a survival need, and being able to do so flexibly, being able to do so curiously, being able to do so youthfully. Because the planet is what needs to be expressed, the house is where or what area of life it needs to be expressed in, and the sign is how. These are just some ideas, right? Just some tossing out some ideas. I'm not saying this is necessarily the case in this case, especially because there is a yod. The moon is the apex of a yod. And it may not come through exactly in the way that I'm looking at it here, just from the moon and the Saturn placements in the trine. Okay, so you have that. Then you've got, the other one they mentioned was Saturn and Aquarius. Okay, so Saturn is responsibility. It's mastery, it's authority. It can also be limitations and restrictions, though I do believe that those are things that the person wants to move through and move beyond. I think that's what Saturn wants you to do, but they can feel limiting or restricting. Since this is going on in Aquarius, this feels like mastery over your differences, over what makes you different. Or mastery needs to be expressed in a different kind of way. In a more eccentric kind of way, or original way. You can look at just tossing out some ideas, but all the keywords on the cards, just tossing out some ideas. Maybe authority is found in a more progressive kind of way. And this is all going on in the 11th house. This one is going on in the 11th house. So it's going to, the backdrop or the area of life or the where is going to be, groups, friends, social causes, humanitarian causes, long-term goals, hopes, and wishes, all of those. So having mastery over your own, let me think, how could you do that? Having mastery, having a responsibility maybe towards progressing groups. There could be something like that, progressing your friends. There could be a responsibility there. You might also feel kind of limited by or with your friends, but I do think that there is a breaking through there that needs to happen so that this can come out more like in a masterful or in a responsible way that doesn't feel like a responsibility that you don't want to have. So when you've got a trine, right? The trines are harmonious. So that means that when this person feels emotionally secure in their own curiosity, in their own flexibility, in their own, in all of those sorts of things, when they're able to emotionally communicate, it flows very nicely with what Saturn wants to do. There is a harmonious meetup there of those energies. Meaning that Saturn is able to have responsibility or find responsibility in a different kind of way, in like groups and friends and social causes and all this kind of stuff, without it being like a limit or a restriction, without it feeling that way. It's a good sort of responsibility or mastery, if you will. There's also a real stability when you see the moon, and when you see the moon and Saturn trine one another, there is a stability there. There usually is an emotional stability there. It kind of stabilizes the moon I think it's usually in a good way. It might be a really good thing for this person because, like I've talked about before, they do have a yod with the moon being an apex, with the moon being the apex. So it might actually help them in some way it might help them to stabilize them. I'm not saying that they're unstable. I'm not saying that at all. Or that they're, or that they're not, but it just might, Saturn can be like a stabilizer. So I feel like if there are any issues with that moon being the apex of a yod, Saturn might actually help stabilize it. It really might. There are other ways to do that too, but I think Saturn here in this way tends to work for the person's benefit. So, yeah. And then just essentially, because I think their question was actually more about just the moon trine Saturn. Yeah, I think it does tend to allude to stability of emotions. I feel like some of the nervousness, since the moon is trine Saturn, I feel like some of the nervousness of the Gemini moon that could exist might not exist quite so strongly. Might not exist quite so strongly with this aspect going on. But these are just some examples of how you can, and I wanted to wing it. I didn't really want to do it ahead of time. I wanted to wing it so y'all could see kind of like the thought process of like how you can actually use them, use the star cards when you're doing this, playing around with things. But I'm not at all saying that that's like absolutely right, because again, you do have to take the entire chart into account. It's not just one aspect. It's not just one aspect. You got to look at everything. And there are not just the odd thing, but there are some other things, even going on with Saturn, that might tailor that. Like if I were to go through this person's whole chart, it would kind of tailor how I would approach that. But those are the themes that you're looking at with that aspect in those signs, those planets, and those houses. Just to give you an idea of kind of how to use the cards. And yeah. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Apaturno Astrology on Instagram. If you want to like or subscribe or whatever the fuck people do on YouTube, you can go to YouTube and search for Let's Fuck With Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you are interested in the star cards, you can go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. And if you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck With Astrology. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.